After having our lecture from our substitute professor, who I really don't remember her name, I do apologize, I learned that in Chinese medieval society, there were a lot of very superstitious people in China. And it basically proved that there was a lot of superstition in China when Dao Yi was killed, and she made sure to say at the end that, if I was to die and it was proven that I was falsely accused, basically she, I would say, cursed China to have a drought and to have a lot of snow, and basically until they find the real reason to her prosecution and until her name is cleared. One personal trait that I realized while reading Snow in Midsummer was definitely a lot of conscientiousness, which really goes with dutifulness and self-discipline. So from what I read, Dao Yi, especially, she was very loyal and she was very dutiful as a daughter-in-law and as a wife. Even after her husband, Mistress Kai's son, passed away, she was still very dutiful. Like, she was very loyal to him, and she really tried to fight against having another husband, even though Mistress Kai, even though she was telling Dao Yi, it was okay, you can have another husband, because, if you don't have this husband, we're gonna get killed. Dao Yi, she really stood with her, she really stood loyal to her husband, and she really stood by Mistress Kai, even though, with the technicality, Mistress Kai technically had no relation to her anymore after her being a widow, but it was great because she stood very loyal to her mother-in-law, even though her husband passed away. And when Dao Yi was getting prosecuted, she only confessed to protect Mistress Kai, and she ended up getting killed for it, which shows a lot of dutifulness, respect towards your mother and your father and your mother-in-law and your father-in-law and your husband. So I know for a fact that with Confucianism, because I know our professor mentioned that, there were 3 pillars. And one pillar is definitely respect your elders, respect your mother and your father, and so on. Dao Yi's father, he sold his daughter, even though he felt bad for it, but he did that so that he could clear his debt. And he told Dao Yi that it's now her duty to please Mistress Kai and to respect her. Also, after Dao Tianzang finds out that the girl who was murdered, the girl who was wrongfully accused and executed, once he found out that that was his daughter, Dao Yi, formerly known as Dao Tianzang, once he finds this out, then he made it his duty to prosecute everyone that was involved in his daughter's wrongful prosecution. So that definitely goes with the personal trait of conscientiousness and following your duties with Chinese culture. I believe in Chinese medieval society, the playwrights from Chinese medieval society was trying to make the plays as simple as possible, so even the most simple-minded people can understand what was going on in the play. I'm reading the Northern Anthology of Drama, so for me, on page 233, where the play basically starts after the 3rd page, all the way until 245, when the play ends, the playwright is making sure you keep up with the play. So from the beginning all the way to the end, they're repeating what's going on. For example, in Act 4, Dao says, "I am Dao Zhang," explains who he is. just like in the Greek and Roman age and even Sanskrit drama, they were really putting a lot of detail into what they were doing. So aside from basically keeping you updated on what was going on in the play, from rephrasing what was going on to explaining, I am looking at the documents from whatever case file, and oh no, now someone's moving away my case file and my case file is popping up again, but I could have sworn I looked at my case file already. So that's one thing that I learned from Chinese medieval society. Also in Snow Midsummer, I'm going to say that Mistress Kai was very self-disciplined, along with Dao Yi's father. Dao didn't have to give up his daughter to clear the debt. You know, like he could have easily done what Dr. Liu did and try to murder Mistress Kai. But from his duty as a father and as a man, instead of doing something like that, he decided to be true and honest. And, you know, he didn't want to, but he had to give up his daughter to clear the debt, hoping that his daughter lived a great life. I feel like that shows self-discipline because, like I said, like he could have ran away with her. He could have just left. You know, like instead he did what he had to do as a father. And Mistress Kai, I feel like she is very self-disciplined because even though she is a widow, she still tried to keep up with her husband's wishes, I would say, because as Dao Yi says in Act 3, you know, Mistress Kai's husband left her with money and riches and wealth so that she doesn't have to remarry, and you know, she wouldn't have to worry about things like that. So Mistress Kai, I feel like instead of remarrying, she decided to keep herself very disciplined by being a money launderer. But I believe that she decided to become a money launderer to keep herself disciplined with managing money and still keeping up with her husband's wishes of being able to live by herself and not as a married woman. Overall, I really like Snow in Midsummer. It was really simple. It was honestly a little annoying because of the whole rephrasing from character to character. But the language was really simple and really easy to understand. I wouldn't mind reading something as similar to Snow in Midsummer. I know our substitute professor recommended a couple other plays and a couple of other films. Thank you.